joining us. This is a flow that's very much focused around the upper body, moving specifically shoulders, shoulder blades, movement involving the rib cage and separating the rib cage from the front of the hip so we can get space across the front body. Energetically, it's very much focused around the upward moving wind within the body, Prana Vayu, and how a strong, grounded sensation and power through the lower body and specifically in the legs can help facilitate a rising of prana and energy in the body. So the props I have with me today are just 2 blocks and a strap. You can use any substitutes for these, like a towel or a belt for the strap, and even pillows or even books for the blocks. So make yourself comfortable and we'll get started in child's pose. So for child's pose today, just have the knees kind of no wider than hips or ribs. The 2 big toes will be touching, and then reach your arms out forward and just bow down and let the forehead rest on the mat. So here I just wanted to get us connected to the breath. We're going to breathe in very consciously and exhale, emptying consciously. So what I mean by that consciousness in breath is just awareness of breath and noticing the pathway that it moves within the body. So for here, the purposes of today, imagine that the breath originates at the pelvic floor or the sacrum, and as you inhale, the breath ripples along the front of the spine, and as you exhale, we empty any tension from the palate at the roof of the mouth. So you can go ahead and practice. Inhale originates at the pelvic floor, rolls up the front of the spine, and then you feel a softness in the head and in the palate of the mouth. Keep just a little bit of pressure through the palms so that you're connected to the whole upper body. We'll have one more breath here. Inhale and full exhale. And then from here we're just going to make our way into Tadasana. So come to standing at the top of the mat. And we'll just begin to move the shoulders with a lot of awareness. So the distance between the 2 feet will be about 1/5 distance. So the 2 outside edges of the feet are parallel to the outside edges of the mat. The toes are lengthening so that there's the surface across the tops of the feet are also lengthening, and the palms will just be resting by the hips. So continue to breathe in this way that we've just found in child's pose, originating at the pelvic floor, rolling up the body, and then exhaling to empty any tension out of the head or the mouth. So we're just starting to initiate that groundedness through the legs and lower body. And the bridge between lower and upper body is the deliberate tension through the core, almost like a lifting through low belly. And then on your next inhale, lift the hands high. If it's okay for the neck, you can look towards the thumbs, lengthen the front of the throat, and then exhale, fold forward and down, bend the knees as much as you need to. Take another breath in, come halfway up and lengthen the head away from the hips, and then exhale, curl all the way in, empty the lungs. Then on your next breath in, again, let's rise, press through the feet, the hands will go wide, you can look towards the thumbs, draw belly in, and exhale, just let the hands rest at the front of the heart. We'll do that one more time. So inhale, hands come wide and high. Look towards the thumbs, lengthen the front of the throat, exhale, fold. Stay strong through the legs. Inhale, come halfway up. Move the head and shoulders away from the hips. Exhale, fold back in, empty the lungs. And then breathe in, press through the legs, rise all the way up, hands come wide. Exhale, hands to the front of the heart. So we'll turn that into Surya Namaskar A. Gather the breath. And we'll start again. Inhale, hands rise. Exhale, folding. Come halfway up, set the back and the shoulders, and then plant the hands down and step both of your feet back into a high plank. You can be on your knees here if you need to, or you can stay on your toes. Try to keep a real connection to the lower belly and lifting through the pelvic floor, and keep the legs really strong so that the muscles are hugging around the bones. Let's take a breath in and shift forward slightly. And as you exhale, lower into Chaturanga. If this is too much for you, you can just come down onto your belly like that. From Chaturanga, slide the toes back, lower the belly all the way down, and lift the sternum forward in space. Lengthen the front of the throat. Gentle pressure through the hands and a lot of pressure through the feet, driving down. And then we'll take it back to downward facing dog. As you exhale, you empty any tension from the head. And as you inhale, you invite all the prana from low body to flow up through the energy centers located at the front of the spine. So we'll spend 4 more breaths here like that, just exploring your breath. And if you need to keep the heels lifted or the knees bent, you can do that. It's very early in the practice to have the heels all the way down. Next time that you breathe in, lift up onto your toes, start to bring the weight into the hands and walk the feet forward, coming into your forward fold. When you arrive, take a halfway lift, set the shoulders and traction the spine slightly. Exhale, empty the lungs completely. And then filling the lungs back up, press through the feet, rise, the hands come wide and all the way up. And exhale, hands come down to the heart center. So we'll do that again. Inhale, one more time. Hands rise. Lengthen the front and back of the neck. And exhale, folding down. Halfway lift to set the shoulders. And then plant the hands, and as you breathe out, step both of the feet back into your plank. And you can stay on the toes, you can come down to the knees if you want. Let's, on our breath out, slowly shift forward and lower down. The heart still keeps reaching forward. And then slide the feet back. You can come to upward facing dog if you feel ready, or you can also stay in cobra, which is the variation we had before. Keep a buoyancy through the arms and lengthen the front of the throat as you lift the gaze. Belly is engaged. And then take it back, downward facing dog as you breathe out. And 5 breaths again here. Maybe you can visualize the breath rolling from the bottom of the spine to the crown of the head. Feel the sides of the neck lengthening, the shoulder blades melting down the back. Make this your last exhale. And then when your breath in, lift up onto the toes, and again, bring yourself forward into your forward fold at the top of the mat. Breathe in, come halfway up, and breathe out, empty the lungs. This time again, come halfway up, breathe in, set the legs, so engage the muscles of the legs, and bring the hands into the lower back, interlace the fingers, and as you reach your hands back, reach your heart forward. And then as you breathe out, fold forward. You can bend the knees if you need to. Try to keep the heels of the hands together instead of opening the palms towards whatever direction they're pointing in. Heels of the hands together, and if you're very flexible, you can bend the elbows here to get a little bit more of a stretch across the front of the shoulders. Just let the head hang. Just let the weight of the head and shoulders create a bit more space in the upper back. We'll spend one more inhale and one more exhale here, and then on your next breath in, press through the feet, just rise halfway, and as you do, bring the hands back to the lower back, switch on the legs, and then on your next breath out, release the hands and bring the hands back down to the mat or to the shins if you need. And then halfway lift, plant the hands down, step both feet back to a high plank, and then your variation of either lowering to the belly and finding cobra, or lowering through chaturanga and finding up dog. Try to keep the legs always in contact with the mat. It's much more stable for the belly and the sacrum, and for the purposes of energetically allowing prana to rise through the body, we want to be really utilizing the strength and the power of connection that comes from the 2 feet always pressing down and the legs always engaged. Any tension that builds in the head or in the jaw or in the palate of the mouth, your breath out is a perfect opportunity to empty that. And then from here, the next time you breathe in, if you can, trying to keep the left heel down as it is, and lift through the right leg. Keep the leg straight and the foot flexed rather than pointed, and lift it up as high as you can without dumping the chest, so keep engaged through the upper body. Lift the right heel up as high as you can, and then inhale, lift the left heel up too, so come onto left toes. Breathe out, bring the right knee forward, all the way across to the left elbow, as far as you can. If you can reach the upper arm, there's a lot of wind outside, you can, or you can bring it above the elbow, and then step it through between the hands, and set yourself up in your lunge. So prepare the hips, lift the chest forward, and your back foot is in like a high plank position, so the ball of the foot is down, heel is lifted. And then we're going to rise, grab your strap or your belt or towel, and we're going to rise up into lunge. Pardon me. So you're going to take your left hand up, take hold of the strap with your left hand and dangle it behind your neck, and then grab hold of the strap underneath the bottom end with your right hand. So this is an option for you. If space, you can find Gomukhasana arms by wrapping the hands and wiggling until you can feel the fingertips and finding a bind that way. So then feel the belly is switched on. See if you can lengthen the front of the throat and really dive and pour energy into that front leg for stability. And try to have the back knee lifted as you lift the gaze. And then we're going to release the hands. The right hand comes onto the hamstring. The left hand is going to reach up. And we open even more across that psoas line, across the front of the throat and chest. And then bring the left hand down and find your lunge, easy twist lunge. Right hand rises. Stay engaged through the inner thighs, drawing inward. And then the back knee drops down. And this is where you can use your blocks. 1 or 2 or none, whatever is available. I got these blocks just off eBay for a couple of dollars. They're very super handy to have. So notice my hips are back over my knee. I want to lift my right leg up and bring it forward so that my hips and knee are stacked in one line. And then from here, I'm going to lift my breath in and encourage the lower ribs to come down towards my knee. And you can do that for a few cycles of breath. And then we're going to release the blocks. Two hands come to the inside of the foot, and you're going to step back and find tabletop. So hands and knees, and then a variation of puppy, kind of like a merging of downward dog and child's pose. So the hands come really far forward. I want you to try and keep your spine straight. So slide the shoulder blades down your back and towards each other as you lower the forehead down to the mat. So we want to try and keep, just like we did in our Ardha Hanumanasana, our hamstring stretch just earlier, we want to try and keep the knees under the hips or the hips above the knees. So if you need to move forward or backwards for that to happen, just do the best, like to feel as though you're supported through the hips and you can move or shift forward or backwards. And then we're going to take this into dolphin. So bring both elbows down. So you can use your block if you have one. If you have your block, sandwich your block like this so your thumbs are on top, and stretch out the bottom of the wrist so the base of the wrist, this under part, is really driving into the mat. If you don't have a block, you can do the same thing but with your hands in prayer. Oh, super sweaty. So the base of the wrists are pressing down, and then tuck the toes and lift the hips up. So you can stay here. We won't be here for very long, I promise. We'll do 5-second count. Bend the knees if you need to. Once you feel a little bit more comfortable, start to lift the shoulders and the hips over the elbows. Try to make sure that your elbows are squeezing in and they're not wider than your shoulders. Let's go for 5, 4, 3, 2, and then 1. So walk the feet back, lower the knees down, hands come to the earth, and coming back into downward dog. We'll be there for 5 breaths. So if you need a break in child's pose, you can come back to child's pose. Oh, it's very hot here. Come back to child's pose or down dog. I'll give you a 1 breath warning. So let's come into downward dog for our last in and out breath. The next time you breathe in, the left leg comes up. Remember, the right heel stays down just for now. The hands are still pressing into the mat, so we're not dumping into the upper back or belly. And then from here, when you breathe in, lift up onto the right toes, so the right heel lifts. And exhale to draw the left knee now into the right shoulder. So maybe the elbow, the upper arm, or the forearm. And then carry it through between the hands. And then set yourself up for your lunge. So back foot, the heel is lifted. And then I want you to lift your chest to stretch out and set yourself up for your lunge. We're going to rise. Grab your strap if you used it last time, or if you managed to take your bind without a strap, go for that too. This time the right arm comes up, and you take hold of the strap with the left hand from underneath and behind. So pour into the front knee and the front leg. Legs are very active, belly engaged. The front of the throat opens and the gaze can lift. We're going to release the strap. Left hand comes to right hamstring. Right hand rises. So sliding the shoulders down, keeping active through the legs. And then right hand comes down. Left hand rises. Stay active through the legs. You know that there's that release coming. And then back knee comes down. And left leg straightens. So to use, if you are not using blocks, if you have space available and you don't need to use blocks, and then my favorite thing to do in Ardha Hanumanasana is to walk the hands quite far forward. This is only if you already have quite a lot of space in the lower body, and make sure you're drawing that left hip in. Don't let it flare out like I just did. And then just a few breaths to encourage this bottom ribs, the bottom of the rib cage, to move forward towards the knee. And any tension building up in the head or the throat or the jaw, empty with the exhale. And then 2 hands come to the inside of the foot. Step this foot back so that you're in tabletop. And puppy pose again. If it really wasn't for you and you wanted to have a break in child's pose, then go for that and work back into that tumbling breath, falling from the pelvic floor and rising, falling and rising into the jaw and the lotus flower, the imaginary blooming lotus flower in the head at the base of the skull. If you've come to puppy and you feel quite comfortable here, again, try to keep a straight spine so that we're connected to the shoulders and we're still active. And you can tent out the fingertips by hollowing out the palms and the armpits. One more inhale. And emptying out. And then lifting the forehead, elbows come down. And we're going for dolphin one more time. So palms either down, palms sandwiching a block or hands in prayer. Make sure the elbows are hugged in, stacked under the shoulders. Tuck the toes, lift the hips. And if you feel comfortable here, you're welcome to lift one leg. Let's stay here for 1, 2, 3, and then switch the legs. We're only going to be here for 3 more seconds. 1, 2, 3. Walk the 2 feet back, and let's take a break in child's pose. You can have the knees just wide enough so that you can feel the rib cage is still able to pass through, but at the same time be supported. So it's a very specific width. I really encourage you to play with it until you find it, because once you find it, it's magic. Stay connected through the hands. This time they're not actively pressing down. Just the surface area at the top of the hands, over the knuckles and the fingers, is pouring forward. And then come back to that breath from the pelvic floor, rising to front of the spine. And the exhale empties the palate. From here, we're going to come forward and move onto our backs. Ooh. So once you're on your back, you can hug your knees in. And if you feel comfortable holding the tops of the knees, you can give yourself a rock or a roll. You can also hug and wrap the elbows around the shins and hold opposite elbow. Yep. And then you can tuck the chin too and encourage the forehead to come towards the knees. And you can keep rocking or rolling, or you can stay still. You're also welcome to come down so that the head and shoulders are supported, which is my personal favorite. And then we're going to drop the soles of the feet down, bring them quite wide so they're about as wide as the mat, and then let the knees drop from side to side and get a little bit more space across the front of the hips. And if you're really enjoying that sensation of the feet or the knees being over to one side, you're welcome to stay. Or if you're enjoying movement, you're welcome to find movement front of the body. If you have a little bit more time with your hands today, this is a very short video, just to kind of share with you something I've been working on recently. If you have more time on your hands, now would be a really nice opportunity to go back and maybe explore the movements a little bit more, dive in, take things further. Otherwise, we're going to lengthen the legs out and just find a moment of peace before we go about our day. Lengthening the back of the neck, tucking the chin just slightly, and coming back to the awareness of breath, initiating at the pelvic floor, rolling up the body, and completing the process in the head. Both palms are facing up. The two legs are long and the feet are reaching towards the two back corners of the mat. And all the muscles of the eyes relax and soften, and the ears open inward. So there's all of a sudden so much space within the head. And if you're craving more space within the head, if it feels crowded, use the exhale to help empty. You can stay here, otherwise just let little movements return to the fingers and the toes. And roll around the eyes and the tongue. And in your own time, in your own way, come back to just a comfortable seat. Hands will come to the knees. As I said, you're welcome to build on that. You're welcome to finish here. Thank you for sharing time and space and truth with me today. Namaste.